Hi there, I'm Coach Amy, Precision Nutrition Certified Nutrition Coach with Results Fitness, and the recipe I have for you today is homemade bone broth. So you may have noticed that bone broth has really become popular the past few years. You may feel like you see it everywhere. I'm going to show you a homemade version. So prior to learning to make this on my own, I used to, buy store-bought, which was great, but store-bought versions are going to have a lot more additives, fillers, and they're super high in sodium. So for example, I found a package buried in the depths of my pantry before I learned how to make homemade bone broth, and this one alone is 30% of your daily sodium, so they're super high in sodium. By making your own, you can control, factors such as salt and whatnot in them. So many benefits to bone broth. It's good for your digestion. It's good for inflammation. It's a superfood. It's packed with vitamins and minerals. Just like, homemade chicken soup is a cure-all, bone broth, multiply that times a million, and those are the benefits that bone broth is going to provide for you. So when you hear bone broth, a lot of people may think, oh, well, it's the same as chicken stock, it's the same as beef stock, but the difference is bone broth is cooked for usually about 24 hours, and the purpose of that is to really cook down the bones and cook down the cartilage, so you get the collagen, you get the vitamins, you get the nutrients, the minerals, all of that's contained in the bones that you choose. I will be using chicken bones. I like to use chicken drumsticks because what I do is once the broth is done cooking, I will save the meat from the drumsticks and make homemade chicken soup with it. So you can also use beef bones as well, and whatever your preference is. It will have a little bit of a different taste if you use chicken or beef, so again, comes down to your preference. So for this recipe, I have 2 pounds of organic chicken drumsticks. I have all of my veggies already chopped. There's carrots, there's celery. I went through, I'm recording this shortly after Thanksgiving, so I had a lot of veggie scraps, like I had some extra onions, green onions, whatever you have, make sure to utilize and not waste, any extra veggies you need to use up. This is the perfect way to use them. And then along with that, I have some sea salt. I have 1 gallon of purified water, so you could use spring water, filtered water, whatever you want to use. And then I also have apple cider vinegar. Now again, not all apple cider vinegar is created equal. So this is actually the raw, unfiltered kind that contains the mother. That's where all the good stuff is. So you might be able to see there's some floaties down there. That's where all the good stuff is when it comes to apple cider vinegar and all of its benefits and whatnot. So I just like to give it a little bit of a swirl to kind of break that up. All right, so like I said, this is going to cook for about 24 hours in a crock pot. You can do 12 hours if you cook it on high, but I highly recommend the longer you cook it, the more benefit that you're gonna get from it. Like I said, those bones really break down, the cartilage really breaks down, and you get those extra vitamins and nutrients. So if you could do it for 24 hours, I highly, highly recommend it. All right, so I'm just gonna basically dump everything in the crock pot. So I have all of my veggies. I have the chicken drumsticks. And like I said, I like to save the meat. Once I strain this off, I'll use this for homemade chicken soup. So if you want to do beef, you can get beef bones from a butcher. They save them for people specifically for making bone broth, I learned. And any butcher will usually have bone broth or bones for you to purchase. They're relatively cheap. You could get several pounds for, a few dollars. And if you don't use all of the bones right away, they do freeze well. All right, so again, the salt, you can control the amount of salt going in here. So I'm just gonna put a few sprinkles. This is not salty like a chicken broth or a beef broth, so you don't need a ton of salt for it. When you go to, there go my curtains. When you go to actually have this, a lot of people just sip it, just, like a tea. You could always add an additional sprinkle of sea salt, if you want the extra flavor. I also like to add turmeric to mine. So once this is all done, if I have a warm mug of it, especially, it's perfect on a cold winter's night. I like to add a sprinkle of turmeric in there, and turmeric is also good for inflammation as well. So it has anti-inflammatory properties and is good for your digestive system. All right, so I'm just going to, this full gallon is pretty much going to fill up the crock pot. So this makes quite a bit of broth. and it freezes well too. So once I finish putting all this together, I'll go over, you know, storage and how to strain this and whatnot. All right, right to the brim. All right, and then I'm going to add my 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. This is going to help break down the bones as well. All right, so I'm not very good at measuring, so I just like to, I'll estimate. All right, I'm going to cover this and I'm going to cook it on high for 24 hours. You're going to see it's boiling, it's bubbling, it's popping. That's perfect because that's helping to break down the bone and cartilage. Once you hit that 24-hour mark, what I like to do, I like to take a large strainer and I skim everything off the top, the meat, the bones, the veggies, and I put them into a large bowl so this way I can, you know, save the leftover meat. Then once I scoop all the large chunks out, I will run this through another, oh my gosh, colander. So I place a large pot in the sink, I put the colander on top of it. If you could find like a finer one, like the mesh kind, that works perfect as well. And then I just pour this through to give it an extra strain and get any of, you know, the largest pieces and bits out of there. You want to let it cool. You can either cool it in the crock pot and store it as is, or what I like to do is once it's cool, I will store it in large glass mason jars. Now, once it cools down and it sits in the refrigerator overnight, when you open your fridge, you're going to notice it's going to have a layer on top of it. That's going to be the cartilage, maybe a little bit of fat, and that's good. If you have that thick layer on top, that's where all the collagen is, all the good stuff. So just like the apple cider vinegar, it may not look very appealing, but I promise you that's where all the good stuff is. So you just leave that in there, you mix it together. Once you warm it up, it will melt and dissolve. So you're not going to be drinking, you know, chunks of collagen. It will dissolve in there into, you know, the broth. And that's it. So again, if you need a winter warmer, a superfood, if you have any cold, virus, anything like that, I highly recommend this. Like I said, just like chicken soup is good and a cure-all, bone broth is 1,000 times more than that. So definitely check it out, try it out. If you try it, let me know what you think. And as always, have a fantastic day.